Hello class and welcome to this Star Fox 64 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and I promise this is not becoming a Nintendo 64 exclusive channel. This class comes very close on the heels of our recent Super Mario 64 class, but Star Fox 64 was another day one game for me as a kid, going to Toys R Us with my pre-sale ticket on June 30th, 1996, and I played it every day that summer until GoleMech came out at the end of August, a couple months later, but that was my summer, getting every medal in this game, dismantling every boss, basically everything we're going to be covering over the course of this complete Star Fox 64 walkthrough. Specifically, and no offense to Peppy or Slippy, but our resident boss expert Gary has all of your boss beaters for the nearly 20 bosses this game boasts. Blaze has your items guide as usual. Fluff has a ton of interesting facts about this game and Star Fox in general, things I never knew before this class, and I'll be walking you through the keys to beating every stage in this game with a medal. And we're going to be beginning with the easy route, then moving on to the medium route, and finishing off with the hard route. So if you're looking for a specific stage, then we have timestamps set up, so if you take a look in the description, at the pinned comment up top, or just look at the timeline on the video itself, you'll find the stage you're looking for. In terms of difficulty, if you're just trying to complete this game, no matter which route you take, Star Fox 64 is not too bad. I'm going to give it that just right difficulty of a 5 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to throwing your controller across the room, probably because of something that Slippy did, let's be honest. Note this is a different story if you're playing on expert mode, but we'll talk about that on the other side. But plenty to get into, so let's run the intro and get into this Star Fox 64 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, before we begin a new game, I think everyone knows this one. We don't need to bring in Fluff for this, but if you hold the control stick, you can move the 64 around, and you'll find everyone is just entranced by it. Never gets old to me all these years later, but alright, we've got a galaxy to save, so let's get into it. You have all the different options here, training obviously, but I think if you're watching this Star Fox 64 walkthrough, you're okay without that, versus the different games you can play with 2, 3, or 4 players. And you can check out your rankings from the past with the ranking tab, but let's dive right into it and get some context here. This was certainly one of the earliest Nintendo games which was fully voice acted. Just really blew me away as a kid. Super Mario 64 blew me away visually, but it was the storytelling and of course the gameplay as well, which made Star Fox 64 so special, and the voice acting is a big part of that. I think you know the story by now, but if you're not, you can read that. But while we're getting some context, let's take a look at the controls for Star Fox 64. CA is the main button of note that fires your laser. You can hold it down to lock onto your enemy and then tap it again to fire a quick burst, which will track them. Useful when you're trying to bail out your other wingmen. Hit B to launch a bomb. Note that you can also hold down A and then use B to target a bomb on your target. Movement with the stick. Note that it's inverted, so down is up, up is down. C buttons are important in this game. Left C is your afterburner. Hold down C to brake. You can change your view with up C and receive a message when Rob calls by hitting right C. And then note the special moves you can do, the double tap Z or R, as Peppy will explain, to do a barrel roll. And then we can flip the stick down and then hit left or down C to do a somersault and U-turn respectively. The U-turn is only in the 3D environment. We can also move the camera around here in the Lilat system, but let's begin with Corneria as we get a briefing from General Pepper here.
It's about time you showed up, Fox. You're the only hope for our world.
Good to know. We'll keep that in mind when we're invoicing you later. Thank you, General Pepper. That's right, Andross won't have his way with us, but yes, getting into it. I always appreciate that we're the good guys, but we're also doing a job. We're mercenaries to an extent. The invoice at the end, the literal invoice, if you're not familiar with this game, just makes me laugh. We'll have a good time with that later, but everyone checks in at the start and end of most missions here, and it's very important in this first mission.
Check your G-diffuser system.
Just the cinematography, I love the camera movements here, the voice acting. It just gave the game a cinematic quality, which, I don't know, I hadn't really seen in a Nintendo game to this point. Probably more present on the PlayStation, but I always felt like the dialogue here should be a bit more technical. We asked you about your G-diffuser, an integral part of the R-Wing's construction, and it sounds like we asked Slippy, how you doing? I should have peed before I left the Great Fox. A little hungry, but yeah, I'll be alright. But I digress, class. We're into the game. We covered the controls. Let's take a look at the Briggs notes for the Star Fox 64 walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. First and foremost, we mention this acronym every now and then here on Video Games 101, but ABF, always be firing. There are countless throngs of Andross's cronies coming after you here in Star Fox 64, and I'm not gonna lie, class, Turbo goes a long way in helping you take out a lot of enemies on certain stages of this game. I like the classic clear Mad Catz number, which lets you toggle Turbo on and off at will, but strictly speaking, not necessary, but it does help. Number 2, UBB, usually be braking with that down C, so you have more time to react, more time to kill more enemies on the screen. Very useful in certain boss battles, as Gary will talk about. Number 3, use your bombs wisely. Always good to have 2, maybe 3 bombs in your supply there at the top right for rainy day situations when you need to bail out one of your wingmen when they're being attacked, or if you just want to clear a screen of a lot of enemies at once, the most efficient way to rack up a lot of kills. And then lastly, you're already doing it. Follow this guide for all the routes, the numbers you need for every stage, all the secrets. So this first stage, Corneria, the number to unlock the medal is 150 kills. Well, I say kills, but it's really points. Certain enemies, when you take them down, they're worth more, like this robot on the left. On its own, just worth 1 point, but you get a 5-point bonus for taking them down. You also get a bonus when you take out multiple enemies with one burst shot, which you can again do by just holding down that A button and then targeting something and then tapping it again. So we get a little bonus right there. The number can be a little finicky. We'll talk more about that moving forward, but so this first stage of Corneria, there are 2 ways to beat this level, and depending on which one you do, this will affect which route you ultimately take. We're going to go with the normal route because we are taking the easier stage route first as we go in order, but there are 2 requisites for getting the secret exit for this stage, to kind of put it in Super Mario World terms. First, save Falco from those enemies which were attacking him, which we just did. Just fire at them either with one of your charged bursts, which locks onto them, or just shoot them out. You can use your left C button to hit that afterburner and catch up to them a little more easily. And then the second requisite is going through all these loops. Again, I'm going to skip that 1 or 2 loops right there so that Falco doesn't force us into taking the hidden exit for this stage. We'll do that a little bit later. So let's use Peppy's advice. Flip that stick down and press the left C button to collect all these items right here. And for the first time today, let's go to our resident boss expert, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters. Alright, the first boss here in Star Fox 64 on the easy route, Granga, the easiest boss in the game. Just focus on firing out one of those legs at the start of the battle. This will cause him to fall over, at which point he can't even move. Just do a U-turn after you create a little space between you and that boss. Come on back, fire into his back. You can generally take him down with 1 pass if you get enough shots in. Very easy first boss.
Thank you very much, Gary. Always love exploiting that little by design hack right there. Nintendo doesn't mess around with their bosses. As a general rule, I think. Most of their, Mario games, certainly Zelda games, and I would say Star Fox falls in that category as well. There's some enjoyable bosses to take down here in Star Fox 64.
I'm fine. You okay over there, Fox?
They'll kind of tailor those messages depending on how much damage everybody took during that mission right there. So you'll notice we did not hit the requisite 150 points for that first stage. It's much easier to hit that number if you go the secret route, which we'll do on the second pass. So put a pin in Corneria for the moment as we move on to the asteroid field. Meteo, specifically. I should note that the amount of health which your wingmen get back is tied to how many points you rack up during that stage. So in some of the later stages, or one in particular where we'll get over 300 points in the stage, you can almost max out any damaged wingmen at the end of that stage. So just something to keep in mind, a little extra incentive to take down as many baddies as possible in every stage, medals aside. So the magic number here on Tella's favorite stage, Meteo, for those who get the reference. Maybe that wouldn't be his favorite stage. Maybe they'll just bum him out and remind him of, well, I don't want to give any spoilers away for Final Fantasy IV/2, but yeah, 200 is the magic number here in Meteo to get our medal, and good opportunity to use some bombs early on to take out a lot of these asteroids. Take out maybe 10 on average per bomb, so it's nice to maybe knock out the first 30 of your points before you even get out of this initial area. Something else important to note is that bombs unaccountably do not hurt your wingmen. Firing at them with your laser will hurt them, but the bombs do not, so that's why I mentioned in the Briggs note, specified that if they're under attack and you can't get a clear shot without maybe hurting them yourself, just launch a bomb off or track them with your target right here, holding down that A button, and then launching the bomb at those enemies to quickly clear them out and save your wingmen's bacon right there. I can say that, we don't have Pigma on the team, but anyway. So aggressive when he says that. Let's bring in Blaze now to give us an overview of these items we're somersaulting into here in Star Fox 64. Alright, let's talk the items you'll find as pickups here in Star Fox 64. First, we have the Silver Ring. This refills roughly 10% of the full size of your health bar. We have the pointy variety of this, which refills about 50% of the regular size of your health bar, so quite a bit more. And then we have the Golden Rings. These are the same as those silver supply rings, but if you collect 3 of these, they will refill / also increase your health bar by up to roughly 50%. And if you get 3 more on top of that, you'll earn yourself an extra life. By the way, there are extra life symbols, which you can find in just a couple stages in this game for what it's worth, but relatively very rare. But moving on, we have the Smart Bomb. I'll pick these up to obviously launch an extra bomb. These cap at 9, so keep that in mind. Fire away. We have the laser upgrade. You start out with the single, pick one of these up, you go to the twin. One more takes you to the hyper, which is obviously the most powerful. And we have the repair kit right there. If you've lost one or both of your wings, pick this up to get your wings back. Note, anytime you lose a wing, you'll go back to that single laser for what it's worth, so try to avoid damage whenever possible. Duh, right, Blaze? And then finally, the container. A lot of times Rob will drop one of these if you pick up the phone. And yeah, this just has a special item, one of which we've already covered. Sometimes generally what you need most in that situation, but there you go, the items of Star Fox 64. Thank you, Blaze. Speaking of picking up the phone, we had Rob call us while Blaze was covering the items. Just tap that right C button when you get the call.
I guess it's your turn to be thankful.
No, it's something about Falco's passive aggressiveness that I always dug. He was always my favorite after Fox. So the Killer Bees here, you can either afterburner really close to them and put those shots into them. You can also hit the brakes a couple times and basically be out of the range of their very dangerous loops. So a couple options there. And there, we're not even going to waste any time. Let's just launch that bomb and get those enemies off of a unusually cocky Slippy's rear right there. Alright, so a lot going on in this next section. First, we can use these burst shots on these clusters of enemies to get a serious bonus. It's a +7 when you get them in a perfect ring right there. So this is a great way to get to our 200. By the way, we flew right by it because, again, we're trying to stick to the easy route here, but if you fly through all of these 7 kind of circular warp gates right here, this will allow you to warp ahead to Katina, and actually opportunity to make a lot of points as well when you're in that kind of warp area right here. As you can see, lots of, I guess you want to call them asteroids. I don't know, like asteroids if you're tripping on drugs or something, but lots of opportunities to more than meet that 200 goal if you do want to warp ahead. But again, sticking to the easy route right here. So we skipped the warps and coming up on the boss now, which will just allow us to hit that 200. So let's go back to Gary.
Boss beater. All right, the Meteo Crusher. Quite a bit more difficult than that last boss. Probably one of the more annoying bosses in the game because it takes a little while. You gotta wait for each of those little yellow triangles to appear in that one opening. As it turns around, just fire them out. And then once you take out that fourth one, note that that little shield will come off. Just go for that little gap, which was exposing the triangles to slip through there and avoid damage. And at this point, you just want to fire at that core, bright and yellow when it's visible. Just watch out for the beams, just dodge left or right to avoid those and get those shots in. And with most bosses in this game, if you take them out fast enough, you'll get a plus 10 bonus as well. So that can put you over the top in that medal count in some cases, so you can hit that threshold. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, these strategies in general will always teach you how to take down these bosses as quickly as possible. But there you go, Meteo Crusher.
Thank you, Gary. And as they try the fake me out move here.
Listen to that monkey.
No, it's a literal monkey. No, we're not going to listen to that monkey. I don't even know how we could. We just like fly away at that point. All right. But yeah, you can see the turbo working for us.
I can't believe I lost to this. Oh!
Some of the best voice acting.
Sorry to jet, but I'm in a hurry.
Not the most original of lines right there from Fox, but very satisfying nonetheless. Certainly to the child version of me. But yeah, some of the best voice acting in this game comes from the bosses throughout. Point out some of our favorite lines as we move along. Yep, Peppy got a little rocked. That's all right. We got 200 points. That's all right, Falco. He was trying to earn his respect right there. I know he's considered to be one of the best pilots in the Lilat system. That's why Fox tracked him down. You can see the 200 pretty much topped everybody off in our party right here. Not that I'm too concerned as we pick up our first medal. Again, we're going to pick that 150 for Corneria up on our second pass through in a little bit. But we move on now to Fortuna, the former defense post.
From the enemy army.
Roger, General.
Makes me wonder if General Pepper actually has any forces, or if it's really just hiring out to Star Fox.
Split up.
Not the worst idea, honestly, but we have our first Star Wolf sighting here in just a moment here on Fortuna. The number here, by the way, on Fortuna, very fair, just 50 points, and you can actually get most of those just by taking down the members of Star Wolf in a timely fashion. You'll note that the bursts, which lock on the enemies, they only register with the game if you have them on screen for the most part. Like, that was obviously going to hit that ship, but if the camera's not, just about 100% has that enemy making contact with your burst, then yeah, it's probably not going to count. It's not going to kill them, so a little frustrating, just like sometimes the bonuses which appear on the screen don't actually get reflected in your total on the left. Point out some instances of that. Essentially, it's supposed to be every single ship that you take down with one of those bursts, plus the bonus which shows up on the screen. So if you take down 3 enemies and you get a +3 bonus, it should be a +6 going to your total overall, but that's not always the case. Thought you needed help. I'm sorry. You can see the help pop up right there. Usually indicates that there's an enemy, or usually in Slippy's case, 2 or 3 enemies on their tail. So around this point, Slippy will wonder aloud why ships are coming out of the base, and we'll get the heads up from Rob that there's a bomb in the base. And before we can go in and take care of it, Star Wolf is going to make their dramatic entrance here from the sky. So let's get tips on taking down the members of Star Wolf once again with Gary.
Boss beater. All right, Star Wolf, this is the Fortuna version where they're much easier than other instances of Star Wolf in this game. But the strategy with them always remains the same. It's kind of a strategy I like to use on most bosses in this game, especially when you're in the free roaming kind of point of view perspective like we have right here. So essentially you just want to put as much distance between yourself and your target as possible. When you hit them, they'll do a panic move, or they'll try to do a flip or a U-turn. If you're far enough away, you can still stay behind them, keeping them in front of you, essentially, and they won't have any more fuel in their tank to make another move before you can take them down. So just spray away with your laser, take them down, repeat this for the other 3 targets. The rest of your Star Fox teammates are useless, as is usually the case in this battle, so take them all down. Good luck.
Thank you, Gary. And yeah, as he mentioned earlier, the faster we take them down, the bigger the bonus we will get. So each one of these is worth 11 if you take them down quickly enough. So the 10 plus 1. So on their own, that's 44 points right there, leaving you just needing to take down 6 of the regular enemies on your own. So that 50 to metal Fortuna, not too difficult if you use Gary's boss beater strategy right there. One of my favorite shots right here. Camera shots just framed perfectly. The 3 wingmen right there, and then Fox coming up right from the bottom.
Hey, we made it!
Yes, we made it, Slippy. Not sure what that meant. I don't feel like we got wrecked too badly there. I don't think it was that close. I think everybody is okay. We're not going to get that much health back because we only got 50 points from that, so you can see that didn't move the needle a whole lot on Slippy, who was just under halfway with his health to begin with, but they're pretty generous with the time they give you to take out Starwolf and then ultimately disarm that bomb, but eventually a countdown will appear, and if you don't take out Starwolf in a timely manner, then you'll head straight to Sector X. If you do, like we did it, manage to take down Starwolf, they'll send you to Solar. But again, once again, we're sticking with the easy route, so we're going to change our route and head to Sector X here, as if that bomb had gone off. And we're going to deal with Andross's secret weapon here in Sector X. I should mention, like that they keep that good luck from the first game, but I should mention Sector X has the most variety of different routes which you can exit from it, essentially. There's 3 different outcomes here in this stage. 2 of them have to do with how quickly you take down the boss, and then there's one more warp, which we'll show you midway through this stage. Speaking of this stage, the number to metal here on Sector X is 150. You can use a bomb here early on when you're just surrounded by enemy fighters flying in. Again, turbo helps as well. And then midway through the stage, want to switch to using a lot of bursts to get a bonus here and there, especially from a little turret section we're going to come up upon eventually. It's a good place to get some bonuses when the enemies are all clustered together and those bursts are close enough. This is where you might want to use a bomb. I think we're going to be just fine getting through without it, but just get that itchy trigger finger when I see so many enemies lumped up at once. You can use your afterburner to get through those bombs before they explode. You can also use one of your own bombs to get a lot of points out of clearing that minefield back there. So midway through this stage, you're going to come upon a junction. We have a killer bee right here. You get 4 points out of it, so. And sometimes the faster you take those down, if you do it fast enough, you'll get another one taking its place. Might want to hit the brakes here. This is going to open up, given enough time, and mine the giant arm, which comes out there. I like to save my bomb for right here, when Peppy's just getting it from that little cluster of enemies right there. But we have a junction coming up. If you head to the left, you'll follow Falco, and you can get to the potential warp area, which we'll show you, but we're going to take the right path, which is easier. Anytime you go the path which Falco's not going, that's the easier path. Falco always seems to take the more difficult path. And don't worry about getting to the 150. We'll have plenty of opportunities taking this route right here. Just go for all of these little clusters right here. But yeah, if you head to the left, you gotta shoot 4 of these gates like we're showing, and then pass through the gates. Once you shoot through that 4th door and it opens up and you go through, you'll go through another warp area right here. A lot more dangerous than the last one. It can be a little tricky avoiding all of the just the variety of scaffolding or space scaffolding. I don't know what you want to call that stuff. Trippy space scaffolding. Lots of little missiles here too, which are all worth 1 point each. Certainly take any bombs we can get at this point. Don't like being tapped. As I mentioned, always good to have a couple in the tank, but Peppy's got his own little fan club follow him there. That got us over the 150 mark. Don't even have to worry about the plus 11 we'll get from this boss if we take him down fast enough. Though I'm sure we will collect on that, knowing the boss beater which Gary is going to have for us. But yeah, I mean, especially on this easier path, none of the bosses are all that difficult. I mean, I don't think the bosses in this game are that difficult in general. Most of them are just more of a fun time to take down, but still, tips always help. So drop down here and let this boss fly over top of you. Get a variety of sci-fi references from this boss, but let's get some tips on how to take him down with Gary.
Boss beaters. Right, Spyborg. Another frustrating boss, and that you just gotta wait for that head to be facing you so that the eyes are facing you. That's your target of opportunity. Fire away at that. It's one of the more narrow targets out of the bosses. You gotta hold down on that control stick to keep yourself relatively high and just maintain that as steady as possible to get those shots in. Dodge those projectiles, and then the second phase, it's the same thing. He likes to play possum there for a second, but not difficult in the least if you follow this strategy.
Thank you, Gary. Another boss who likes to play possum here. This one kind of creeped me out a little bit with the finger wag. And just talking nonsense. Kind of freaked me out as a kid. Mind the giant beams, but there you go. Kind of feel sorry for whatever the heck that was. But we are moving on to Titania now. Actually, we would be moving on to Macbeth because we beat that boss in a timely manner. If you don't, and the boss slaps down Slippy, he'll get knocked down to the surface of the nearest planet, Titania, and we have to go rescue him. That's what we're going to do anyway, but so yeah, if you just basically don't take this boss out quickly enough, then you'll be forced to carrying on with the easy route, which we're going to show you next as we get our first tank mission here in Star Fox 64. So the controls for the tank are just a little bit different. We still have bombs and we can still charge up our laser, but instead of doing a barrel roll by double tapping Z or R, we'll just do a literal kind of roll on the ground, the surface which we're rolling along, and then hold Z and R together, and you can hover for a little bit as long as you got the engine boost left in the tank before it has to recharge.
It's too dangerous there.
I can't leave Slippy hanging.
Slippy's like, I'm right here, Fox. Search for Slippy there, though. Got a nice Star Trek reference, search for Spock. Yeah, I don't know how they explain that away. Again, it was our choice to change our route right there. We're taking the Landmaster down to the surface. That's the thing I don't understand. We use unlimited boost, seemingly, to get back to the Great Fox at the end of this mission. Again, 150 is the number for Titania, and this is one of the more difficult ones to actually hit that quota. I meant to hit the burners there. Turbo really helps for loading up these giant turtle-looking enemies and just hitting their underbellies to get a +4 right there total. The more of those you can get, the better. Also want to put together as many of those proximity combo bonuses as possible, and there's some laser turrets a little bit later on as well, which can net you some extra points. But yeah, it's hard going in this mission. Probably want to be riding those brakes, that second Briggs note, to maximize the time you have with your target. Like this case right here, probably not going to have enough. Yeah, a little off timing with the brakes right there. But anyway, while you're following along, let's go to Fluff for the first time today to finally get our first Fluff fact about Star Fox 64. Fluff?
Star Fox 64 is a 1997 part rail, part 3D sandbox space shooter for the Nintendo 64 from Nintendo, and acts as a reboot of the original 1993 Super Nintendo rail shooter, Star Fox. As was the case with a lot of games early on in the Nintendo 64's development cycle, the designers of Star Fox 64 had difficulty getting off the ground, if you can forgive the pun. Nintendo programmer Kazuaki Morita didn't have any experience with 3D programming, so he and the original Star Fox artist and character designer Takaya Imamura began tinkering with the idea of porting the original Star Fox to the N64, partly as an experiment to acclimate themselves with the 3D world of Nintendo's upcoming next-generation console. They had issues particularly at the start, considering they didn't have any N64 hardware to work off of, as everything Nintendo had was being exclusively used by the Super Mario 64 team, a game we just did a recent class on, incidentally, which you can check out via the playlist in the description. I shared a similar anecdote during our class on GoldenEye 007, as Rare's team behind the game had the same difficulties early on. Whereas GoldenEye's team had to use modified Sega Saturn controllers early on in their development, and not being able to get a hold of N64 hardware either, Morita and Imamura had to use modified SNES controllers in the early days of their production. As their experiments began to take shape in the form of what would be a unique reboot of Star Fox for the N64, the higher-ups at Nintendo were still skeptical until the pair shared their progress at the fittingly named 1995 Nintendo Space World, an annual Nintendo video game trade show for showing off new content, which ran from 1989 to 2001. Nintendo was impressed at the pair's dedication and finally greenlit the project shortly after, and Star Fox series creator Shigeru Miyamoto and other Nintendo staff would subsequently join and help finish the project in time for its 1997 release. With its tight gameplay and visuals, coupled with its immersive and effective storytelling, Star Fox 64 is considered to be one of the best titles on the N64, and with sales of roughly 4 million units, it's also one of the top 10 best-selling 64 games of all time.
Thank you, Fluff, deservedly so. And we have just made it. 146. We're gonna eke this one out, but yeah. As long as we get there, that's the only thing that matters. And hey, we found Slippy, who wasn't really lost to begin with, but just play along, class. Anytime, Slip, anytime. And he pulls him underground right there, but don't worry, I'm sure he'll resurface in a second. Otherwise, we have an opening and start. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Let me get a piece of that action, Fox.
I'll believe it when I see it. I think we're better off going back to Gary.
Boss beaters. Alright, Goras, the first boss you can face in the tank here in Star Fox 64. Just keep firing at the arms. Don't worry about hitting Slippy, by the way. He can take it. Once you take down all the arms, that chest becomes the weak spot. Just plug away. You can do those rolls, double tap Z or R to avoid those laser shots, but not a difficult boss.
Good call, Gary. Thank you very much. Just shedding parts here. The more shots we get into, and that's certainly one strategy. Just start throwing your bones at us. There you go. You can see how quickly the turbo just rips them apart, and there's our plus 10. Getting us over that finish line again. One of the more difficult medals to pick up here in Star Fox 64.
All aircraft report.
Titania.
I thought I was a goner.
Gonna be good to get back in the
You're
air.
always saving your hide, Flip.
I'm glad somebody said it.
I'm sure he's learned his lesson.
Somebody's got to be like, what lesson? I was fine at the end of that last mission, but...
Venom.
Alright, headed to Venom for the first time. Everybody's at full health, looking good. And this is the part I question right here. The seemingly unlimited boost which we suddenly have as we lift off right here and enter the Great Fox. It's just flying off without us. Satisfying medal to pick up right there, though, as we move on to the Bolse Defense Outpost. The last guard line before Venom right here, at least coming in the easy route. So the medal number here is 150, and you actually, if you didn't destroy Starwolf at Fortuna and the base was destroyed, then you will run into them again here, and that can actually help you medal in this particular stage, but we'll talk about that in a moment. For tips on how to take down what is essentially a boss, here's Gary.
Boss beaters. All right, the Bolse core. If you're running the Starwolf here, you can either engage with the same strategies we talked about before, or you could ignore them altogether and just focus on the base. Take it down, you'll take them down, but regarding the base itself, you want to go clockwise around, just breaking the whole time, taking out those towers so that the base is no longer protected. At this point, the core will eventually come out of that middle. You'll have a bunch of those bright yellow targets to go after. Put a lot of distance between yourself and the core with each pass. Keep firing, you'll take it down.
Thank you, Gary. We can't take out any of the ships until we take down the final tower, but I'm just going ahead before I do that and cleaning up some of these little turrets. Yes, I just said that, Slippy, thank you. Yeah, just taking out, there's a pair of turrets around each one of these towers, because once we take out this last one of the towers, which each of which is worth 4 points, it's 1 plus the 3 bonus which they give you, that's when we're sort of on the timer for the most part for getting the plus 10 for each of the weak spots of this core right here. That's very Independence Day right there. Not the first reference they'll make to that movie. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, one of my favorite stages, but Father was always bailing me out too. I was kind of useless back then too, I think that's his way of saying that. So we're not really concerned about the other members of Star Fox right here. We want to get as many points as possible. For what it's worth, there are 8 points on the core, 8 targets, which you can take down, each of which is worth 1 plus 10, so 11 from each of those. So if you have 62 points from the ships, the towers, little turrets, everything else on this stage, then you can go ahead and clean up. I like that 3 spot. Just let Slippy on his own for long enough, then he'll put together a nice combo opportunity for you. Don't tell him I said that. But yeah, if you come here and you let Star Fox survive at Fortuna and have them destroy the base, then this is a lot easier to hit that target because you'll have the plus 10 from each of them, plus 55 overall. Yeah, just come in, as Gary mentioned, and once you take out a few of those, Rob will always call you automatically. And I kind of lost track of how many we have left over at this point. I think there might be maybe 2 more targets on that thing we could take down, so if I could grab another, I think there's just 1 more from now, so if we could grab another 12 kills before the bonus drops down to a plus 5, that would be good. Nice big cluster of enemies right there. We're going for the combos right now, otherwise I just launch a bomb, plus there's just not enough enemies to really justify it. Just 3 more points and we can go ahead and finish off that core. Getting a little nervous. Don't want that bonus. Bless you, Slippy. Bless your ineptitude. Alright, now we can move in and we'll take it. I'm not sure how we ended up hitting the core right there, but that last one managed to find our laser or vice versa. I love the Christmas vibe of the red and green coming off of what used to be the Bolse defense outpost. But now that that's taken down, we are moving straight into Venom. We medaled all of the courses here on the easy route. And the requisite number to medal on Venom is 200 points. And kind of similar to Corneria, this is an easier target to hit if you come in with the hard route, the back entrance as it were to Venom. So we're not going to go for the 200 right here. We're just going to try to survive this. Not too difficult, pretty straightforward. But when you come in the back route, that's when you take on Starwolf with the hard route. And every time you take down one of the members of Starwolf, you get 50 points right there. You get a 50 bonus. So if you do it quickly enough, very easy to take down the 4 of them and reach that 200-point plateau. So we're going to hold off on the metal, and pretty straightforward. Just don't take too many hits, take out the enemies. Not a whole lot of strategy involved, but let's go back to Fluff while we're just on autopilot here and get some more Fluff facts about Star Fox 64. Fluff?
As the professor mentioned, Star Fox 64 was one of the first Nintendo titles to be fully voice-acted. Before hiring professional voice actors, the development team behind Star Fox 64 actually tried voicing the characters themselves. Apparently this was very poorly received when they shared this test version, so they settled on professional voice actors instead. Though professional might be a stretch for some of the cast, considering in some cases this game was their first and or only credit. Even with the voice acting, some sales reps purportedly didn't care for the overdub and suggested replacing it with the original animal sounds from the SNES title. After this tested poorly, the developers thankfully went back and stuck with the overdub. The one exception with no voice acting is Yaru De Pan, a Tanuki, yep, as in Tanuki Mario, who appears for the tutorial and according to lore is the president of Space Dynamics, the company behind the preferred craft of Star Fox, the R-Wing, and even employs Slippy's dad, Beltino Toad, and is even rumored to secretly deal weapons to Andross on the side. That's a surprising amount of depth for seemingly such a throwaway character, let me tell ya.
Thank you, Fluff. Yeah, I forgot all about that character, honestly. Probably because I haven't done the tutorial since I first played this game for the first time as a kid in 1997. Kind of bothers me when Andross calls. You know, you're expecting a nice pickup from Rob. Just Andross there to troll us. Speaking of the voice acting, some of the lines that come out of Falco's mouth. Yeah, speaking of which, just a second ago, Falco yelled at me, "Hey Einstein, I'm on your side." Apparently a lot of players took issue with this, not wanting to believe that Star Fox and Einstein would exist in the same universe. So they, when they made Star Fox 3D, the remake in 2011, they took that line out, replaced it with, I think, "Hey Genius, I'm on your side." I can appreciate that, though. Kind of a similar thing they did with Super Mario RPG, which we covered, but anyway, Gary?
Boss beaters. Alright, GoleMech, here the priority is to dodge those obstacles, those poles and everything which keep coming out of the walls. Just thread those needles, as the professor says, and then fire away at any body parts you can find which are taking damage on GoleMech. The legs, the arms, the back of the head, eventually the core. Eventually you'll take him down, and it's on to Andross.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, not too difficult. Hardest part is dodging the obstacles like you mentioned. I think they give you maybe 7 or 8 minutes before eventually this path just dead ends and you lose a life. Because they figured this kid's having enough trouble as it is. Just put him out of his misery. But yeah, Super Mario RPG was the same thing in the SNES version. They had a lot of lines in there which you'd have to suspend your disbelief that the two exist in the same universe. They kind of cleaned some of that up for the remake as well, but just makes me laugh. Be very careful here going through the tunnels. It's a different setup than the tunnels which we go through when we're coming in the back entrance on the more difficult route. This is completely linear. You just have to avoid the obstacles on the way. Use some of the tilt by holding down L or R to avoid the odd laser beam and things like that. Alright, let's not get personal here. Gary?
Boss beaters. Alright, Andross, no matter what route you take to get to him, this first part is always the same. You want to fire at those eyes. Once you stun him, one of his hands or both hands will be exposed, but I like to go with the one which is open. Makes for an easier target. It's always the opposite side of the eye you took out. Once that hand is gone, repeat on the other eye, and then go for that other hand. Take that down, shoot him in the eyes once again, and then the second form of this will vary depending on which route you took to get to Andross, the harder or easier Venom route, but Here in the easier one, the second form, it's very simple. Just shoot at the eyes. He'll go down before you know it. You can dodge if you need to get out of the way of his charge. But if you're turbo firing, you'll probably take him down before he even gets that off. And there you go, the easy ending for Star Fox 64.
Thank you very much, Gary, as we enjoy our epic, dramatic escape there at the end for the easier ending right here. Pretty similar to the more difficult route and best ending, with some exceptions which we'll show you, but we're going to go ahead and fast forward through this ending. Ultimately, let's just see what our finishing score was. Always nice when you can clear 1,000 points. By the way, you get an extra life every 100 points which you accrue as they add those into your score at the end. So let's jump ahead until the very end of this ending, where we can see Andross taunting us in the sky, as if to say, try one of the more difficult routes, you chicken wuss. Which we're going to do, because we give in to peer pressure here in Video Games 101. So let's re-rack it back in the first stage, and we'll show you how to actually get the requisite 150 points on Corneria by going through the secret exit of that stage. But not before we get to see one of my favorite parts of this game, the invoice to General Pepper. See what his reaction is. 1027, I'm going to put that around mid-60s. Yeah, there you go, 65.
Steep bill, but it's worth it.
That's one steep bill, but it's worth it. We'll see if we can't take his breath away with the next invoice we sent his way. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you.